Welcome to the War Room. My name is Savannah Hernandez, and I am here in studio with Greg Reese. We are going to be here for the next 2 hours, and then we actually have a very special guest joining the third hour with Greg Reese to take your phone calls. But for the next two, me and Greg in studio to cover all of the news today. It's been such a wide-ranging news day, Greg. The Bernie Sanders and Mike Bloomberg race is really heating up. One of Bernie's latest rallies was it was actually protested. We have another in the latest MAGA attack. Trump was at the Daytona 500 yesterday. We have the latest with the coronavirus. So we have a lot to discuss today, and I'm very excited to get into all of it. But also, happy President's Day, Greg. You know, a lot of people are off today, but we are here in studio to discuss all of this great news with you guys.
Absolutely. It's great to be here. I was telling Savannah when I sat down, I've been so busy at my desk doing other projects that I have no idea what's going on in the world on this Monday. The last I checked into the news was last night, pretty much. So this is all going to be kind of my daily dive into it. So I appreciate all the information that you have stacked out in front of you today.
I know I have a bunch of stuff, Greg, and I've been reading things since I woke up this morning. I literally got out of bed, started scrolling through Twitter and looking through everything that was going on today. And like I said, just wide ranging. I'm really excited to get into all of it. Like I said, Bloomberg and Bernie's race is really heating up. Those two are the two to watch for. You know, a lot of people were saying that it was going to be Bernie Sanders versus Buttigieg. But as time is going on, we're seeing Mike Bloomberg pour more money into his campaign. He's gaining in popularity. And with that gain in popularity, a lot more information about some of the statements he's made in the past has come out. So I want to get into all of that today. We're going to have a segment where we go through all of his latest statements on what he thinks about healthcare, the Black community, the Latino community, blue-collar workers, farmers. Many interesting videos have come out. And not only that, Greg, but also this week, we have our 9th Democratic debate happening in Las Vegas on Wednesday. And then this Sunday is the Democratic primary in Las Vegas. Next week, same thing, but in South Carolina. So a lot to watch out for.
Absolutely. You know, it seems to me like if things were fair, it would be Bernie Sanders versus Trump. No doubt about it. But they seem to be extremely open about the fact that they're not going to let Bernie run. And that to me is the interesting story, because Bernie fans, there's a lot of Bernie fans, and they've admitted on camera that they will burn down the world if their guy doesn't get in, and their guy ain't going to get in.
Right. We've seen those Project Veritas videos. And you know what? Mike Bloomberg actually just put out a video, too. We'll play that coming up against Bernie Sanders, basically calling out all his supporters for their calls of violence. There's a bunch of news stories, too, saying Bernie bros are very violent, and they've always used that tactic to silence other, like Bernie's political rivals. So it's just interesting to me, too, to see how all of this is ramping up. Funny, you know, Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren, I feel like they're nowhere to really be seen or heard from. Really sad and devastating fall for Joe Biden, you know, our former VP, and then Elizabeth Warren as well. So we'll see what comes of that. And like I said, too, coronavirus, we've have so much information about that in terms of the rise in people infected, the rise in people who've died from the virus. In Taiwan this past Sunday, it was reported that they had their first death from the virus. That marks the 5th death outside of mainland China in regards to the coronavirus. We also saw that people who were on that Japanese cruise ship, or the cruise ship that was near Japan, they're actually all going home now. So that was 3,000 people that are basically going back to all of their home countries while they were in that ship where coronavirus was infecting people. So we'll see how that pans out as well. Savannah Hernandez and Greg Reese in the chair, folks, for the next 2 hours. And then special guest in the third hour. Oh, and Leo Zagami is coming up. We'll be right back, folks.
Welcome back. You are listening and or watching The War Room with Savannah Hernandez and Greg Reese today on this Monday. Kind of a slow Monday in the era of 2020. This is one of the first Mondays I think I remember that wasn't full of crazy news. There probably was crazy news that I missed that we're going to get to today.
I know, Greg. I think you just haven't read the news today.
I think so.
It is a really busy news day, especially for President's Day. You know, I usually listen to podcasts every morning, but everyone's off today. So I'm actually really glad that we're still on air because we're going to be breaking all of that news to people who would normally be getting it maybe from another podcast. But we're here, we're on air because we love our viewers and we love getting to break the news every single day of the year, especially in 2020.
2020 has been a blast. I mean, you know, for those of us who enjoy novel existence and interesting events happening, which I think we all should. I'm going to introduce a video clip of President Trump from Daytona. It's just a little quick compilation that we threw together this morning showing the amazing spectacle that happened at Daytona. I'm not a big, huge sports fan. I'm not even a big, huge politics fan. I do appreciate good things. I appreciate interesting, fantastic, sensational things. And just watching this massive plane buzz of the audience at Daytona, I thought was amazing. I thought it awakened the child inside of me, and it was fun. That's what life's all about. So let's check that clip out. Our great
As
president.
we welcome you to NASCAR on Fox and the 62nd running of the Great American Race, along with Jeff Gordon, Jamie McMurray. I'm Chris Myers, and nice to have you along with us for this special moment.
I have been to a lot of Daytona 500s, Chris. Never have I felt the excitement and energy. We've had great races on the track, but we've got the president landing right now. The fans are pumped up. I mean, wow, what a day.
It's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen to see. They said that plane's 800 feet above the racetrack right now. What an entrance by the President of the United States.
He's the Grand Marshal. He'll give the command. Presidents, of course, have attended NASCAR races.
Daytona International Speedway, we love our country, and it's truly an honor to be with all of you at the Great American Race. Gentlemen, start your engines.
I mean, no matter what happens, even if Trump turns out to be just another globalist clown, I will say this. It has been a great time for me because I am not a fan of political correctness. I'm a huge fan of just people being genuine, real people, of people being fun, and I don't really care how crude or offensive you are. If you're genuine, I love you. If you're genuine, you're beautiful, in my opinion. I could care less about how you come across as politically correct or, you know, because I don't even understand any of that. And Trump has delivered for me in a way that, like I said earlier, it just awakens the little inner child in me. I love to see a person being genuine, saying it how it is, buzzing a crowd at Daytona. The pilot of that plane must have had the time of his life doing that.
Greg, and honestly, I loved that video. And whether you love or hate Trump, that was a badass video. And I think we do have a really energetic, fun, and badass president. I mean, that perfectly exemplified his whole, run as president and what it's been like having him in office. It's been fun. It's been exciting. It's been energetic. While he was there at Daytona, of course, you know, Grand Marshal Trump yesterday, it was a lot of fun. And people were chanting 4 more years. People were chanting Trump 2020. A lot of excitement and energy around the president, of course. And again, this is such a big event that the media really couldn't downplay it. The media couldn't say, oh, okay, well, there weren't that many people excited about Trump. No, we saw the excitement. We even saw, of course, our Democrat politicians come forward. They were mad that Trump was there. They said that it was a taxpayer-funded appearance, blah, blah, blah. They do everything that they can to hate on Trump. But at the end of the day, the drivers there were so excited. The crowd was excited. People were chanting. And a couple of the drivers took to Twitter to talk about their experience meeting Trump. Clint Bauer, who's one of the NASCAR drivers, said, not going to lie, I had no idea what to expect. The man walked in shook all of our hands, took selfies, and whatever we asked of him. I judge people on how they treat me and others I'm with, and that's why I really appreciated meeting POTUS. Thanks for coming to hashtag Daytona 500. And then you can see the pictures here of him shaking hands with the president and just posing with the president. And like, look at Trump's smiling face. Like, you can genuinely tell that he loves being with people, that he cares about each American, that this was a great American event that he, brought a lot more energy to. Also, Haley Deegan, another driver, wanted to get her helmet signed by Donald Trump, and she actually got her goal completed. She was really excited and happy about that. But Twitter marked the following as sensitive material. So they tried to censor her picture with President Trump. And as you can see here as well, it's just her holding her helmet with FLOTUS and President Trump. And Twitter said that that was sensitive and that people had to, click into it if they really wanted to see it. So that's just the state of the media, of social media. They have to do everything they can to censor the president because, as we can see, there's a lot of people that are rallying around him and love him. And I mean, you really can't hide it at this point. They really have to censor to hide it.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is at this point it's just causing a snowball effect, like they say, the Streisand effect, and I'm sure they're well aware of that at this point. I'm sure they are. Like, I noticed CNN when I was looking for images of the plane going over Daytona, what came up mostly on Google was a CNN article talking about how the president lied to the people by tweeting out a image of George Bush from 2004.
Yeah.
When obviously what they were doing was they were giving everyone a heads up, like saying, hey, everybody, get ready. That's obviously what they were doing with that image. I mean, it almost makes you feel like you're going insane sitting here trying to explain that right now because it's obvious. And yet CNN, because they're desperate and because they have nothing else to do, they decided to call him a liar for that. And yeah, and it makes you have to wonder, like, how many drooling sheep are out there still. And I'm sorry if that sounds offensive, but at this point, it's just getting ridiculous. How many people are buying all this nonsense story at this point? And how many people are waking up? Because I would imagine the majority of the people now that are looking see an article like that and they're like, wow, the media is 100% just bonkers,
exactly,
crazy
Greg.
lying to us.
I mean, you and I both talked about it too, and the whole office has been talking about it. It was a fun event. Again, whether you love or hate Trump, I think the Daytona 500 it's a fun event. It's an American event. Our president was there. He was supporting other Americans. It was just a lot of fun. So finding a way to demonize that is just like scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point, and it's uncalled for. It's ridiculous. And you're right, when people do attack Trump for going to events like this, for just trying to spread positivity and support for American people, it just again shows how misconstrued the media is and how much they try to lie to us and push to us that President Trump is evil, he's bad, he's mean. He can't do one thing right in their eyes, and this just exemplifies that again.
Absolutely, and it's not, and on that note, I'm kind of sick of some people in journalism or conservative world that tend to think that this is just for clickbait, that the media is just trying to get clicks or not. No, the media is doing this because they work for the exact same people that Bloomberg works for the exact same people that Soros works for. These people are all taking orders from the same place. And what's the good news is that it's not, the more they fail, the more it looks ridiculous and the more it's causing other people to wake up.
And look at what else we're talking about too now, Greg. Everyone is mocking the media. Everyone's laughing at CNN. Everyone's laughing at MSNBC because who propped up Michael Avenatti as a candidate against Trump in 2020? All of those big news networks. And now everyone's laughing because he just got charged with extortion. He's ridiculous. And it's just like they will scrape up whatever they can against Trump. Let's look at E. Jean Carroll. She couldn't even form a sentence together, and the media propped her up when she came forward with rape allegations against Trump. The media will do anything that they can. They'll push any narrative they can to make Trump look bad, even to the point of destroying themselves and destroying the Democratic Party.
The death of corporate media? Is that what's coming? Are we going to see that?
We'll see how 2020 pans out. Should be a very exciting year, Greg.
Absolutely.
Welcome back to the War Room. My name is Savannah Hernandez, and I am sitting in studio with Greg Reese on this very heavy news day. We've got a lot to cover. So far, we've been talking about Bernie and Bloomberg a little bit. We want to get into the coronavirus a little bit later. Up next, we have Leo Zagami, who's going to be talking to us about the latest news in terms of the Catholic Church. And yeah, Greg, we just finished talking about the Daytona 500 as well and how popular President Trump is, how no matter how hard the media tries, they can't hide it, they can't stifle it any longer. America's back, and they're rallying around President Trump, and we've seen that very clearly yesterday. But we also want to get into as well. Now, Greg, you and I, last month, we went to Richmond, Virginia for that gun rally that they had. That was also another very energetic, great event. Some of the nicest people that I've ever met. I've never felt so safe. We saw people open carrying over there with these big AR-15s. I've never really seen people open carry like that before. So I was a little bit, I guess, surprised when we were there. But again, once we got in the crowd, everyone was smiling, happy. It was so safe. Ralph Northam tried to declare a public emergency and say that, you know, people's lives were at risk potentially because of this event, and it turned out to be amazing. Well, Virginia lawmakers have now rejected Ralph Northam's assault weapons ban, and I believe a couple of Democrats also voted against the ban as well.
That's good news. That's good news. It's not terribly surprising. You know, it was and that's how America has been for the most part. That's how I grew up. I remember growing up at a young age. The first time I saw people open carrying like that was in Boy Scouts, probably. And then after Boy Scouts, did some time in the military, and you experienced that in the military. And then guns becomes a part of your culture. It's like for a lot of us, this is how it's always been. Mm-hmm. It's only been recently that there's this new foreign alien culture in our midst that seems to think that guns can be gotten rid of somehow, and then that'll solve all the problems of violence in the world. It's crazy. But yes, this is encouraging. And it's not that surprising because, I mean, what would have resulted would have been war, and they would have started the war, and it would have been black and white and clear as day.
Right, and I had said that some Democratic senators voted against, and it was actually 4 of them that joined with the Republicans on Monday to vote against the bill because, like you and I said too, and a lot of people stand up for the Second Amendment because once we lose the second, we could potentially lose the first. We can lose a lot of our other amendments. So luckily, not all of our Democratic senators in office are blind to that, and they're still willing to stand up for our constitutional rights. Now, I want to play this quick video as well, Greg, from the vote on this bill. It was HB 961, and the response after it was struck down in clip number, let me see here, clip number 21.
Ayes 10, noes 5. Ayes 10, noes 5. The motion carries. The bill will be carried over for the year. A letter will go to the Crime Commission to study it. Thank you, Delegate Levine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you all for being here. And thank each side for your respectfulness.
So for our radio listeners, Delegate Mark Levine of Virginia is standing up at the podium. They just struck down the bill, and now all the residents and sheriffs in the background are standing up and they're clapping because this bill just got struck down. And his face is just priceless, Greg. Like, look at it. He just has to stand there and take it because he just realized that he's not going to take away people's constitutional rights. And his reaction to it is just so priceless. He's just sitting there like.
Well, yeah. I mean, it makes you wonder who these people are and where they come from, because it's not like, this isn't like a board game we're playing where you can just make a law, a magical law, and then go take people's guns. Starting a war is starting a war. Starting a fight is starting a fight. You know, picking a fight, and they're picking a big fight. I mean, because that's the whole point of the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment doesn't say anywhere, and if this ever gets voted out of law, then submit and do nothing. No, the Second Amendment says if this ever gets voted out of law, now is your time to go wage war against those people that are trying to take your law. I mean, it's just, so no one wants to go on paper saying, yes, we want to start a war with Virginia, except this idiot at the podium who, I don't know where these people come from.
And Ralph Northam, of course. And you know what, Greg, I too, like, I love going to the events that we're able to go to. And again, folks, I'll take this moment to give a quick plug and say, go to InfoWarsStore.com so we can continue to go to these events. But it's so important that we go to them and we show and bring light to who's really there, who's championing their gun rights. I had interviewed a young African-American woman, and she was talking to me about why this event was so important to her, why the Second Amendment was so important to her. And I like going and talking to other women at these events because from a woman's perspective, okay, why are gun rights important to you? And of course, you know, it levels the playing field for women. We know that men are biologically bigger than us. We don't live in the safest world. You and I were talking about the Austin homeless ordinance and how dangerous the streets of Austin have gotten. And the Second Amendment, I know, is something that a lot of women who live alone depend upon to feel safe, to feel secure in their own homes.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, it's really just, you know, I could even say I could care less about anything in politics except for the Second Amendment and the First and the Second Amendment. But the Second Amendment, we are not that sophisticated. We are not that clever. We're not that smart. We're not that enlightened. We're basically years away, maybe a year away from being animals in the jungle again. You know, we live at a very amazing time and a delicate balance. And so the gun balances everything out. The gun makes us all equal. The gun allows, like you said, a young woman to feel somewhat safe where she can protect herself against a violent attacker or worse. And the same for everyone. And so it's a no-brainer. I think if we can succeed at restoring our republic, we will demonstrate to the world how amazing and simple the Second Amendment is, and everyone's going to go after it themselves. Right. Everyone's going to get one.
And you know what baffles me? Okay, so I mean, you know, if you take any of these democratic policies and you apply logic to any of them, of course, they immediately fall apart. But what baffles me is that we have Democrat media talking heads. We have politicians coming forward and saying that Trump is tyrannical. Trump is a dictator. Trump won't leave office. He won't concede if he loses in 2020. Trump is this and that. He's bad. He's taking away our freedoms. Okay, well, if you think that that's true, then why would you want to give the government the power to take away the very thing that can keep Trump from being tyrannical, from being a dictator? I genuinely don't understand the logic where all day long they rail against Trump. They think that he's so evil. Meanwhile, they're like, but also we want the government to take our guns so that, you know, if Trump really was this dictator, he could easily overthrow us. I don't understand it.
There's nothing to understand. You know, there is no logic involved with who we're up. The divide isn't even political. The divide is basically the illogical, the irrational on a good end and the insane and the psychopathic on a bad end all together against people that are just trying to cling to some type of reason and logic. You know, and we're not necessarily better or smart or geniuses. We just kind of think logically and reasonably, or we try to, which is a good thing.
Definitely, Greg. I'm glad that there's still a couple of people out there and a couple of Democratic senators that were willing to vote against this bill, this resolution, because you're completely right when you say if you try to take away people's constitutional rights, it's not going to end well.
Welcome back. You are tuned into the War Room with Savannah Hernandez and Greg Reese. You know, we are no doubt living in extraordinary times right now. And I used to always say to myself that the reason that we've woken up and the reason that we're seeing things the way we're seeing them is so that we can wake up others and maybe we can stop the evil overthrow and depopulation agenda of the death cult. And that might be true, but I also think that one of the reasons that we're awake is so that we can take care of ourselves and that we can take care of our loved ones. And it's no joke right now. We're going to get into the coronavirus later in the show, but I mean, if you haven't already done storable foods, if you haven't already gotten a gravity-fed water filter, X2, iodine, these are very important things. We cannot depend on this luxurious system that we've only lived in for a few decades. I mean, the human race hasn't existed like this forever. We've just been in this little bubble that will pop, and right now we are in probably the most fragile, delicate time ever. So I would say if you're not ready for it to pop, then you're living like a fool. So if you haven't already stocked up, get your storable foods, get your iodine, get your gravity-fed water filter, and everything else, in my opinion, is icing on the cake. You can get everything at our store that you need to be holed up and survive whatever's coming so that you will come out of this stronger and better for it. That's all I have on that. Savannah?
Yeah, Greg, we have some great products at our store, some that I use myself personally. Our krill oil is great. Our fish oil is great. But of course, one of my favorite products that I use religiously is our Super Silver Whitening Toothpaste. I always push this product. I always put the ad for the Super Blue toothpaste at the end of my videos because it's one of the best ones. And right now it is currently, I believe, 50% off. Yeah. big savings at the store always. And we appreciate Alex so much because he does really just at his core care so much about the viewers, the listeners, which is why our Super Silver, now that the coronavirus is breaking out globally, that's why it's discounted now. That's why our storable foods are still available. And Alex has been really pushing people to buy them. And, you know, he just, at the end of the day, just cares so much about every single person, and that's why he provides these great products at the InfoWars store, which allow us to be on air and allow us to have great guests like Leo Zagami on. Leo, we are so excited to have you. Thank you for joining us on this President's Day. Now, Leo, you came out with your latest story, Cardinal Pell's appeal of abuse conviction coming up as the Vatican wants him back. I haven't been following this too closely, Leo. So for somebody who hasn't been following this, can you give me like a quick, maybe 1 to 2 minute background and lead up to this story now?
Hello, Savannah. Hello, Greg, and thank you for having me on. I would say that synthetically, Cardinal Pell, of course, is trying his last card, his last appeal. We have, of course, last year saw an attempt by Cardinal Pell that failed. And so now he hopes in March 11th and the 12th of March, he hopes to be able to finally go home. But there is a lot of controversy around the Cardinal Pell. We all know, we have talked about it for years on InfoWars. And Cardinal Pell is, though, a very important person to have back in Rome for the Pope. He actually wants him back there because, as you know, he was running the Vatican finances for a number of years. And there is a huge Vatican scandal at the moment that it seems only Cardinal Pell can unfold and get rid of. In the meantime, though, I must say that President Trump is really angry with the Pope, and angry with the Pope because the other day, on the 13th of February, he received in the Vatican the former president of Brazil, the communist, the left-winger Lula, and he dedicated to him an unprecedented 60 minutes. Usually for heads of states, he dedicates only 15 minutes. And for this former head of state instead, who was jailed for corruption, he dedicated 60 minutes. And now there is a lot of talk that Pope Francis wants to support Lula in overthrowing Bolsonaro, who is the duly elected president currently in control of Brazil, who is also very close to Donald J. Trump. And Lula, after this meeting with the Pope, went directly to Moscow. So we are talking, of course, also of Russian interference, because aside from what most people think, Russia is always siding with the left-wingers worldwide, with all those ex-KGB agents. And they want to, of course, keep Maduro in power in Venezuela. They now have a new president in Argentina, which is also the native place of Pope Francis, who is close to their own left-wing globalist policies. So the enemy overall this is actually Russia, which is trying in some way to sabotage Donald J. Trump in South America. Going back to Cardinal Pell, in Australia, of course, Cardinal Pell is an important player. We have seen him for years being able to be in charge of this very delicate matter, which is the Vatican finances. And now that there is a scandal of 400 million that have disappeared in some way, invested 200 million were invested in a place in London. And then there is another 200 million that seems to, I don't know, who have been invested also in London. But out of all this, the main problem here is for the Vatican, recover Cardinal Pell from this trial, bring him to Rome, and together with Cardinal Pell, clear this matter up economically. Because Cardinal Pell is linked to the Opus Dei, and the Opus Dei is really doing everything possible to also influence the judges. Though they have said, experts, lawyers from Australia have said that only 13% of appeals to the Supreme Court eventually are successful. But this is not any kind of case. This is the case of one of the most influential people in the Vatican, who was number 3 in control of the Vatican finances. And now Cardinal Pell has been moved to another prison because apparently in the last couple of weeks he had these drones flying over his cell, trying to pick images of him, drones that were probably from some tabloids. So he has actually been moved to another prison, from what I heard.
Leo,
I think I summarized it quite well.
No, that was great, Leo. That was great.
I think so. That was good. You know, it seems to me like, you know, back in the day, we would always talk about the top of the pyramid in the Illuminati, the Queen or the Pope. And lately we've been seeing the Queen kind of playing it cool, not really going too anti-Trump, kind of staying in the shadows, being smart almost. But the Pope doesn't seem to be hiding.
I think, Greg, sorry to interrupt you, but I think that she's trying to avoid scrutiny because she has her own problems. I mean, she has Prince Andrew, who is basically sought after because of his connection with Jeffrey Epstein. Mm-hmm. And now is also sought after because of another connection with a Canadian-Finnish billionaire who is also a rapist. So here we are in front of a queen who is very weak at the moment, but apparently she's also involved in this 200 million property in Sloan Square, and so probably the money actually went into the pockets of the queen.
So you're saying the Queen is not playing it cool. The Queen is backed up and hurt and fragile right now, and that's what we're seeing with the Queen.
Very fragile. In fact, in England, for the last few months, they are kind of repeating this like a mantra. After the Queen, the monarchy might even cease to exist in Great Britain. And this is, of course, a very crucial matter for a country that has lived with the monarchy forever and that has given birth to a form of democracy. But it's always a constitutional monarchy. So once this Brexit thing is over, now the other problem is what is the future of the monarchy in Great Britain when you have most of the royal family involved with scandals? Because another guy who was very close to Jimmy Savile, the pedophile, was Prince Charles, who is also now fighting with his son, Prince
And Leo,
William.
we're about to go to break, but we'll have you finish that up on the other side of this break. Savannah Hernandez, Leo Zagami, and Greg Reese.
We are back with some mystical music appropriate. We're talking about the Vatican, talking about the Pope. We're talking about the lawsuits of pedophilia against the number 3 man of the Vatican, Cardinal Pell. And what I find interesting, every time we talk about the Vatican or the Pope, I'm always thinking about the Queen as well and the Queen of England. And it fascinates me, the idea, is it possible that we could be alive to witness an England without the Queen or an Italy without the Vatican? Leo Zagami, do you think it's possible that we could see at least a reform of the Vatican? Could Italy exist without Vatican City?
I would say that it's possible because we're already seeing changes in the Vatican with a Pope like Ratzinger, who was put on the side, and a new one that came up in 2013 with a completely progressive agenda that wants to, of course, diminish the divinity of the actual papal figure. It seems to me that now there is a really big clash in the Vatican. I was reading the newspapers in Italy this morning, and they were all discussing this clash between Ratzinger and Pope Francis. So having 2 popes has not been easy because Ratzinger is not really staying silent as Pope Francis wished. And so he has punished his secretary, Father Georg, who is now being removed from the papal household and left to take care of Ratzinger. But of course, they don't want to have any more problems because Ratzinger went on record supporting and actually working together with Cardinal Sarah on a book regarding the possibility, the celibacy of the priests against the possibility of letting the priests being married, which was one of the original intentions of the Vatican Synod that took place, the famous, infamous now Pan-Amazon Synod, where we saw the Pachamama idolatry and all the rest in Rome in autumn. And now Ratzinger, of course, has succeeded because Pope Francis has rejected every possible idea of married priesthood during his pontificate. So that was a victory for the traditionalist, but at the same time, as I said, Ratzinger is basically at house arrest. We have a pope who is kept in house arrest by another pope. Is something that we haven't seen for many centuries, and we hope not to see again, but there is definitely changes in the Vatican. I'm sure that once Ratzinger dies, Pope Francis will resign, and then there will be another pope, and gradually this pope will diminish the figure of the pontiff in favor of the Bishop of Rome. That's what actually Pope Francis calls himself these days, Bishop of Rome, so a bishop amongst bishops, not a supreme head of the church that comes down from the time of St. Peter to us. This is the transformation. The Opus Dei, though, has a big problem because Cardinal Pell wants to go back to Rome, but not everybody in the Vatican wants him back in Rome. And so there is like an underground war being fought here, and we don't know how it's going to end up. But even if on the 11th or 12th of March some decision is taken, it will take probably several more months until we actually know if Cardinal Pell will be getting off the hook, which I think is the original intention of the Vatican. And at the same time, as I said earlier in the show, there is more and more a clash between the traditional forces within the Vatican and the more progressive ones. The Opus Dei has openly attacked me through one of their main journalists who used to work for the Episcopal Conference in Italy, Maurizio Blondet. He actually has invited the Vatican to move a lawsuit against me. So the Vatican is issuing lawsuits, and I'm very lucky to not be in Italy any longer, because apparently they are actually moving with police investigation and so on to try to stop my exposure work. But I guess that that's happened also because now I'm in the US. I'm not any longer in enemy territory, and so I'm capable of delivering you also this information in a much more relaxed way than when I was in Rome.
Well, thank God for that. That must make your home here in America all the more cozy, knowing now that the Vatican's got this lawsuit out for you.
Absolutely. And you were talking about the Queen. The Queen is fundamental in all this, because you have to understand that Australia depends also from a royal court. The Supreme Court that Cardinal Pell is appealing to is ultimately in control of the Queen, because the Queen controls Australia, is a country still under the control of the Queen. And now we have this coronavirus. A lot of people are pointing their finger to London as being responsible for having created the coronavirus in order to deactivate, in a way, all this interest towards the pedophilia networks, which worldwide are being hammered by Trump. I mean, we have this other guy, this millionaire fashion executive, a friend of Prince Andrew, Peter Nygard, who was luring young, impressionable women from poor backgrounds, just as Jeffrey Epstein did. And then we have, of course, Harvey Weinstein, who just finished his lawsuit. And it was pretty unprecedented, because during the lawsuit, it came out that he's not even a man, he's an hermaphrodite with two different sexes. So all these crazy events that are happening around the pedophilia network that involve, of course, not only the Vatican, but also England and Hollywood, well, they are all, there is a strange coincidence that now we have this coronavirus spreading right at the moment in which all these pedophiles are being put under investigation.
You know, you're talking about Harvey Weinstein with two different sex organs. It's like he's a literal troll guarding the gates of this satanic club. We are finding that everything we've been talking about for the past couple decades is true. It's ridiculous. And so, you know, you're talking about everything's coming down, everything is coming out and falling apart. Here's the question that I have. It seems to me, you know, with all the success you've seen behind the scenes, we've seen behind the scenes with the pedophile networks coming down, with the ones in public in charge, you know, the Pope and the Queen and stuff, acting like idiots, acting like fools. Something in my gut is telling me that the top of the pyramid, the face that we never knew before, the names that we never knew before are gone. The brains of the operation, if you will, because for most of my life studying, you know, Illuminati stuff, they seemed clever. They seemed smart. They seemed like they could figure a plan out. Whereas today, it seems like what we're seeing is just desperation, fear, like just desperately trying to maintain what little power they're losing. What's your take on that? Do you think that maybe something's been going on behind the scenes where the people that the Pope works for and the Queen work for, maybe those characters have been removed? Or am I just wishful thinking?
No, actually, I was talking with a brother from the United Greek Lodge of England this morning regarding some massive changes that have gone on behind the scenes in both in Freemasonry, but also in various secret societies related to what I have always defined as the Illuminati network. And it seems like what I said 15, 20 years ago finally has been received, and that people are taking action. I mean, there is actually young Freemasons, people from various institutions and think tanks that are contacting me every day because they want to find solution. They are fed up with this hypocrisy, with this world that has been in the hands of these people for way too long. And of course, another big important thing today is the communist virus. So we have to understand that this elite has created this communist virus, and it's just as bad as the COVID-19. I mean, communism has been a way for the elite to manipulate the masses. In countries like in South America, for example, the Jesuits control every single socialist communist leader. And they do it with, like I said at the start of this of my segment, that they control it together with Russia. So we have nowadays this great possibility, the possibility that maybe communism finally will be exposed and will become eventually a minority if Trump succeeds in 2020.
Thank you, Leo Zagami. This has been a fascinating discussion, as always. It's great to have you join us. For more, check out leozagami.com for all the latest from the great Illuminati whistleblower, Leo Zagami.
Thank you, Leo. I feel like I learned so much in that segment. I didn't even say anything because I was just absorbing it all. Thank you so much for coming on. Welcome back to the second hour of The War Room. My name is Savannah Hernandez in studio with Greg Reese. Now, we have some breaking news for you folks today. Caitlin Bennett was attacked at Ohio University. Apparently, liberals there were not happy that she was at the university and basically started a riot. We are hopefully going to be getting her on here within the next few minutes to give her first statements after this attack. But let's go to the video and see what happened.
You don't want to stand there. Hey, you don't.
Ooh, so for our radio listeners, it looks like they're in a truck. They're surrounded by a bunch of liberals who are throwing maybe sodas at them. They're flipping them off. They're screaming.
They're still throwing stuff.
You need to back up.
Joel, shut your window, Joel. Joel, shut the window.
They're surrounded on both sides, and people are just screaming at them and flipping them off.
The cop is letting, he told me, Justin.
It is a bit like a zombie movie.
He has nowhere for me to go.
Thank goodness they're in this huge truck. And look, there's just cops out there just letting these people throw stuff at them. Wow, so that was probably, what, like 30, 40 people in that little mob? All right, folks. So breaking here first, Caitlin Bennett attacked at Ohio University. She'll be on with us in the next couple of minutes to give us her first statement after that. And I think she actually is ready right now.
Hi, Savannah.
All right, perfect. So hi, Caitlin. How are you doing? Talk to us about what happened. What were you guys there at the event for, and what triggered this mass hysteria?
Yeah, so we went there to just simply film a President's Day trivia video. We were going to ask them basically trivia questions about the presidents and major things that's happened with certain presidents through the year. I only got to ask one person one question before they started mobbing us. It started as a mob, and they were throwing toilet paper at my face. I'm pretty sure they were wrapping toilet paper in harder objects and throwing them at my face. They were spitting on us. And then when I tried to move away, because the crowd quickly formed to at least 100 people just in the first 20 minutes I was there, I walked away and go inside of a building to get them away from me, and they mobbed me again. Someone chopped something all the way across the room, hit me straight in the face, and so I'm like, I don't know what to do. Basically, we were there at the most liberal university in Ohio, and that's how we got treated. You would think if it was the most liberal university in Ohio, we would be met with the most amount of tolerance and love and acceptance. I've never had this happen to me before, and I just want to point out that the police department at that university, Ohio University campus police, I asked an officer to his face to help me because I was the center of a riot. They were trying to hurt me. They were throwing steaming hot coffee on me. And he looked at me and said, I can't help you. And he walked away from me. They left me there. And any conservative that is in Athens, where that school is, or any conservative Trump supporter that goes to that university, they should demand why that university is letting conservatives be treated like this and not protecting them. That is their job. They walked away from me. And I just want to point out also, I know I'm ranting here, but they did this to me because they know my opinions. Any listener should understand they would also treat anybody with the same beliefs the same way if they knew about their beliefs. The only reason they did it to me is because I'm not afraid to speak them. And I'm still not afraid to speak them. They will never silence me. But they didn't do this because they don't like me. They don't like my opinions. And that goes for every other person. If they knew your opinions, they'd attack you too.
And Caitlin, we're so glad that you got out of there safely. That mob looked so violent. And that was one of the first things that I noticed as well. Just those police officers that are just standing there watching these people go crazy, throw things at your truck, yell profanities at you. They're doing nothing. They're taking no action here. And you know what you said as well, this is one of the most liberal universities in Ohio. You think they'd be so loving and tolerant. Well, in 2020, I think that liberal has taken on a whole new definition, and it's vitriolic, it's violent, it's dangerous, it's just pure evil and crazy hatred at this point. We will be right back on the other side of this short break, where Caitlin will continue talking to us about this horrific attack that she just had to experience at Ohio University. Welcome back to the War Room. Savannah Hernandez in the chair today with Greg Reese. This is the last hour that I will be in studio with you folks today. And we are joined right now by Caitlin Bennett as well, who is just at Ohio University. She was trying to shoot a President's Day report, go quiz people about President's Day. I'm sure it's going to be a great video, but unfortunately she wasn't able to. I think we'll see if she gets it out, because she was violently attacked. If you guys want to roll the B-roll, a mob of like 30 or 40 students surrounded her and Joel Patrick in their truck and were screaming profanities at them, flipping them off, throwing unknown substances at them while the police looked on. Caitlin joins us now. Continue talking to us about this experience. And I mean, did you get out of there safely? Are you okay?
Yeah, so we are okay. I smell like coffee because I got steaming hot coffee poured on me. But one thing is, I had a 7-foot, he was 7'3". He was a 7-foot security guard. It got so bad to the point he had to pick me up and cradle me and just walk me through a crowd of these people that were pushing me and trying to throw stuff on me. They hit him in the head so many times trying to throw things on me. If he weren't there, I don't know what state I would be in right now. I feel like I'd probably be at the hospital if my security guard wasn't there with me. He just picked me up and got me out of there. And one thing that I would like to point out, and we'll have this in coming out on Liberty Hangout on YouTube and Facebook, they were chanting at me to leave. They wanted me to leave. They said, get the F out of here. So I was like, I'm going to get out right now. I'm going to regroup and get more security, and I'll be back another time. But we were trying to leave, and they wouldn't let us. They wanted me to leave, but then when I tried to, they surrounded the car, and it might look like there's 30 to 40 people right there, but in total it's probably 300 to 400 people that came out within the matter of 45 minutes to start rioting. And that's exactly what it was, and that's not free speech. Causing a riot because you don't like someone else's speech is not free speech. And I hope that President Trump sees what's going on college campuses. Yeah, he signed an executive order to protect free speech and no free speech zones. But what's going on at these state and federal funded universities? The cops stand down. You can't be a conservative on them. It's insane. Ohio University needs to be defunded until they get their crap together. So, yeah, I mean, the video might look like 30 to 40 people, but it was 10 times that.
Yeah, I mean, we're just seeing the tail end of that, of course, when they're surrounding your truck. I couldn't imagine you actually being in that crowd. Just looking at the reactions that those people had to you as you're in the truck, it looks like they want to hurt you. It looks like they want to attack you. It doesn't look like, you know, they are even willing to have a civil debate or conversation. And you said that this was all sparked just by your presence being there because they have differing views. And I mean, it is unfortunate that this happened, but I also think that, you know, it is these types of videos that really wake people up to what's really going on at universities, what's really happening with free speech, in the sense that you have a conservative view, people know your views, people know that, you know, you're pro-Trump, you're pro-Second Amendment, and this is their immediate response. It's just hatred, it's vitriol, it's complete violence toward you just because you have this differing opinion. And Joel Patrick as well, who is a minority, who was also with you.
That's a good point. No, that's a good point, Savannah. They sat there and they were calling me racist. Oh my gosh, I can't even count the number of times they called me a racist. All of them, all hundreds of them were calling me a racist. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, and if I were a racist, I wouldn't be here with a black guy. And then they looked at Joel Patrick, realized he was with me, and I'm not even going to repeat the things they said to him because he was with me. And they were mad he was with me because I was white. You're just going to have to see the footage. I'm not going to repeat the things that they said, but there they are. Several dozens of people said, why would you come to the most liberal university? Didn't you expect this to happen? Well, no, because you guys claim that you're the party for minorities and women. What women? I'm a woman. Why aren't they standing up for my rights, women's rights? Why aren't they standing up for mine to just exist on a taxpayer-funded university?
Greg, do you have any response to this? I know that you've, I'm sure, experienced the same exact thing as well. We've gone to a couple of rallies, a couple of protests with the InfoWars mic, and we're met with the same thing. What is your response to this?
Well, I mean, the anger is real. I don't think these people are upset about ideas. I think these people are simply going after whoever the television set is telling them to go after, and whoever their college professors are telling them are the bad guys. These are the people that they just want to return to the pleasant distractions that we all lived with during the Obama days. They want to go back to the nice times. And they're sick of all this Trump era. They're sick of all the high anxiety they're living with every day. I mean, to be honest, these people have no idea why they're upset. But it's pretty obvious to me why they're upset. They're upset because the television is making them upset. They're upset because they have put all their faith into the mainstream narrative, and so therefore the mainstream narrative couldn't possibly be lying to them. And so they're left with no other choice but to lose their minds and attack strangers, commit crimes, basically. I mean, basically they're forming a mob and they're attacking someone simply because they're being told to by the TV. It's madness, and it's not going anywhere. What I wonder is how can we possibly diffuse the situation? I mean, if it's as stupid as I think it is possible that maybe these people could just be educated to the fact that, okay, don't attack these people. Sorry, you've been lied to. Sorry, we've been tweaking your mind because you've put all your faith in us. I don't know.
And Caitlin, we have about 3 minutes left. What would your message be to Trump supporters who have to experience this type of hatred and violence every single day? And I guess what would your message be to all of the people who tried to attack you today?
Well, one, the message to the people who tried to attack me today, good try, but you're never going to silence me. I'm going back. I will be back to that university in some capacity, whether it's a speech in an auditorium, whether it's there with 20 security guards. I will be back because those type of deranged people do not dictate what I do. If they wanted to make me leave today, I will be back, and you can count on it. And my message to Trump supporters is, look at what's happening. I know they know what's happening. I know they see all the viral videos of Trump supporters being attacked at rallies, at college campuses, just in the streets in Portland. It's now happening here in Ohio. We voted for Trump. This is happening everywhere. It's spreading. It's not just Berkeley anymore. It's not just Portland anymore. It's not just San Francisco anymore. It's in Athens, Ohio, in the middle of nowhere. We have to make sure, we know they're crazy. There's no way, these people are going to win an election. Just go vote. Don't get comfortable. You have to make sure you're going and voting and show people these clips. There's no way someone can look at this that's an adult with a level-headed mind level-headed on their shoulder. There's no way they can look at this and say, well, she deserved it. Okay, well, no, this is a liberal. This is how they're acting. And just like you said, Greg, their Twitters told them to hate people like us. They would treat every single Trump supporter, if they saw you with a red hat on, a Make America Great Again hat on, out there on campus, you do the exact same thing to you. So you just have to make sure you're supporting President Trump and making sure you're voting.
Well, Caitlin, I commend you on your bravery for going out to this university and wanting to go back as well, especially after having to deal with all of that. You need to take the InfoWars truck out there. That's what Owen takes. That way they can't go and mob him. And I mean, even when he was in the InfoWars truck, he got a glass bottle thrown at him. So the level of hatred is just so extreme with these people. And we're over here all so glad that you're safe. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course, you guys can go find this content that she's going to be putting out about her attack on banned.video at libertyhangout.org and at her Twitter account at KateMarieOX. Caitlin, stay safe out there. You definitely need to take the InfoWars truck and get, 10, 20 more security guards. I'm glad that you and Joel Patrick are safe. Thank you so much for coming on with us as this is breaking here. Again, I can't reiterate this enough. Please stay safe, folks. And again, go to banned.video to see this exclusive content of Caitlin getting attacked at Ohio University for simply going out and expressing her First Amendment right. All right, guys. So Greg Reese was in studio with me, but he started drinking Turbo Force. And now he's running around the office doing laps because he has so much energy. Folks, out of the InfoWars store right now because, Greg Reese is gone, as you guys can clearly see. I guess I'm just manning the ship by myself here until he gets back. He had to go run off all that extra energy from one of our most amazing products, Turbo Force. One of my favorites can be found at InfoWarsStore.com. I'm sure there's a sale on it if the guys will just pull that up for me and I'll let you guys know what that is. But that's just one of the many products that we have on sale. Of course, one of my favorites is the Super Silver whitening toothpaste. Oh, Turbo Force not on sale, but still, guys, great product. Almost 5-star reviews on that, 96% out of 218 reviews. And I'm sure if you go and scroll through there, it's just rave reviews about how great the product is. The flavor is great. The energy boost is great. It always helps me focus a little bit too. I always get kind of groggy at 3 p.m. right when the show starts. So it's a great little pick-me-up, and then it gives me enough energy to go work out at the gym after a long day at work. So I'd highly recommend this product right now. Great 5-star reviews. One guy said, warning, do not take product if you plan on being lazy. I second that. If you take Turbo Force, you're going to be focused. You're going to be energized. You're going to be doing laps around the office like Greg Reese is, which is why he's not sitting in here with me today, or right now, I guess. But until he gets back, let's see, folks, what should we talk about? I guess we'll talk about something that I guess Greg wouldn't mind me talking about by myself. Let's talk about what's going on in London right now. So I saw this tweet today by Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, and it says trans women are women, trans men are men, non-binary people are non-binary, and all gender identities are valid. Hashtag LGBT History Month. And of course, every single time I see news about Sadiq Khan, I see a tweet about Sadiq Khan, I just always laugh because these are the issues that he's always so focused on. London actually just put out an ad about their city, and it was highlighting like the Muslim community, the African community. It was highlighting everyone in the community, but actual people from London, but white people, because of course they're so focused on being diverse. Oh, Greg, you're back. How was your laps around the studio? I told them that you took Turbo Force and you were so hyped up you had to go run around.
It was great. You know, I have the energy of a 20-year-old. It's fantastic.
Right, because of all of our great products, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm glad that you're here now. I was just talking about Sadiq Khan. He put out this tweet. It says, trans women are women, trans men are men, non-binary people are non-binary, blah, blah, blah. Hashtag LGBT History Month. And I was just basically saying how they're so focused on being so woke, so diverse in that country. I'll let you read that. And this story just came out of the UK as well today. Teen fined under house arrest for asking trans police officer their gender. Now, this was a teenager with Asperger's, and he was handed a hefty fine and placed under house arrest for asking a trans police support officer if they were a boy or a girl. Apparently, these words or that phrase, this teenager asking the police officer if he was a man or a woman or she was a man or a woman, I don't even know. It doesn't say in the story. But apparently that was abusive or insulting, and it went against the Welsh Public Order Act of 1986. And not only that, but the officer said that he felt vulnerable, distressed, and embarrassed after being asked what his gender was. And this teen with Asperger's is now under house arrest because of that.
This is in Wales?
This is in, I'm not sure.
And it was the police officer who was asked?
Yeah, it was the police officer. This teenager asked the police officer what the police officer's gender was, and then the police officer said they felt vulnerable and embarrassed. And now the teenager is under house arrest.
I think this is, that sounds like the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And what, good God. You know what's fascinating is Sweden. I need to do a report on it. I need to get around to doing that because I just recently learned that this gender thing has been going on for generations in Sweden. To me, this is brand new. To me, I never heard of this stuff before Trump, and so it's very easy to laugh it off and disregard it as just some kind of weird, trendy nonsense. But no, I have a friend who's my age. I'm 50. She was raised in Sweden as a child to be a boy, and her mother also went through that in Sweden. So basically, what I'm gathering is ever since World War II, Sweden's been up to this weird turning boys into girls and girls into boys thing.
That is so weird. And I'm already excited for this report because I know you get so deep into these things and you just always bring to light such unique viewpoints and angles on these stories. So I'm really looking forward to that. And going back to just this whole issue as well and the fact that London tries to be at the forefront of diversity, I wanted to bring light to another story about stabbings in London, which we know have been on the rise. This came out today. London bloodbath, 15-year-old boy and two others stabbed within 90 minutes of each other. It was a 15-year-old boy, a 30-year-old man, and a 19-year-old man. They were all stabbed within 90 minutes of each other. All three stabbings were gang-related. And of course, we know that since Sadiq Khan took office, that knife crimes have been up. They rose 52% in the city after his election in 2016. So they're so focused on being so diverse, so woke. Meanwhile, they're not even paying attention. Sadiq Khan is not even bringing a light to the fact that people are being stabbed in the streets in London. People don't even feel safe in their own community. And I always like Americans to look to London for the whole gun control matter and issue because there's no guns over there. So what is happening now? People are stabbing each other in the streets. And I think they were trying to take knives away from just like the common man as well because the stabbings were getting so bad. Scissors, tools, and people were just basically getting just like everyday household items taken away from them because this knife epidemic has become so dangerous.
It's outrageous.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring light to that. And what else, Greg? Speaking of violence, actually, let's bring it back home to America. And let's talk about the Austin homeless crisis. You know, something that you and I both have experienced. Me and Greg live in the same neighborhood. We're neighbors, which is pretty cool. But it's not cool because after that homeless ordinance was passed by Mayor Adler last year, we saw a really big rise in homelessness in tent cities around our area. We literally have homeless vagrants who come and dig through our trash. Well, I do on my side, Greg. I don't know about you.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is like I was just talking about how the gender thing is a new phenomenon for me in my reality. This whole, there's no gender, and same with the homeless people. I mean, I grew up basically in the city. I'm basically a city boy, and so I know homeless people, and there's always going to be homeless people. But what we've been seeing lately, once again, to me, this is very recent. This is like almost Trump era recent. And there's a very interesting case going on. I don't have an article in front of me or a name of it to cite anything, but there's a very interesting federal case going on in San Francisco where two fairly high-level city workers were found guilty on several counts of felony fraud involving the homeless. So basically what they're doing is they're siphoning federal money into the tune of the billions, I believe, to making money off of the homeless with these fake shelters and fake solutions that are causing massive amounts of money. And it's a very interesting case because we're seeing the same thing in Austin. And Michael Savage, who I was listening to talking about this, was talking about the money goes up. So these guys who were just busted for all these felony counts of fraud against the homeless, that money that he's making is going up towards Gavin Newsom. Just like here, it's going up to the mayor.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, just like whether it's here in America or whether it's in the UK, it's these liberals, it's these Democrats, it's these power and money-hungry politicians who are ultimately dragging us down to ruin. And I do want to expand a little bit more on the state of Austin homelessness on the other side of this short break. All right, y'all, Savannah Hernandez and Greg Reese in studio. Now, we were just talking about the Austin homeless crisis. Greg, you and I both moved here. I've been here for 2 years now. I think you've been here for a little bit over a year, and we've really gotten to see this whole thing unfold. We were here when Mayor Adler first passed that ordinance allowing public camping, and we've seen the city slowly decline, which has been very unfortunate. I saw this story today. Mayor Adler actually went to a farmer's market this past Saturday because small businesses are now pulling out. The Round Rock Honey Company made a Facebook post stating that they're departing because of unpredictable and unsafe behavior by vagrants and mentally ill individuals at the market that has created an unsafe environment for their workers. And Mayor Adler went to talk to the small business people there in the farmers market and basically said that the city has ordinances in place to prevent similar types of incidents from happening, to prevent people from coming up and aggressively confronting you. He said that there's so much fear surrounding crime in the city, but it's all because of a spread of incorrect information. It's because of the spread of misinformation. And I just want to say that that's ridiculous and it's such a lie because Mayor Adler, and we've gone to city council meetings as well, and we've confronted him about this, and he completely has disregarded the fact that there's been a rise in 311 calls. There have been women attacked in the streets. People are afraid to go downtown. Small businesses are closing and now pulling out of farmers markets because they're so afraid of the homeless here, which are able to just rampantly rage through our city and do whatever they want. No one confronts them. And the fact that he says that there's ordinances in place, well, nobody puts these ordinances into action, basically. The homeless are allowed to do whatever they want. And this guy, Jason, he's not from Austin, but he put this tweet out the other day. He said, he's been following the Austin homeless crisis. Local officials are in denial of the situation. He was recently in Austin for a 5-day conference, and each day the walk to the convention center included walking past individuals who are aggressive to us or to each other. And that was in response to this story about Mayor Adler basically saying that businesses and locals don't need to be concerned about this homeless population and the rising homelessness problem. And let me touch on this last thing, Greg, and I'll let you comment. But locals here in Austin are now getting so upset about this that they started a petition to recall Mayor Adler and 5 sitting city council members. You can go to ourtownaustin.org. They need 70,000 signatures to recall Mayor Adler, 6,000 signatures to recall the city council members. Registered voters can sign this petition, and if you're interested in becoming a part of this and being active in the community and trying to get Mayor Adler out of office, go to ourtownaustin.org and you can help spread this petition. You can help, get signatures, and you yourself can sign it as well. So this is a great thing. I'm glad that people are doing this.
Absolutely. I think that this is really just what we're seeing is like a symptom of something deeper. Like I would say Adler isn't doing this out of some type of personal ideology. I would say he's carrying out a plan of destruction. It's very similar to me. It seems very similar to the flooding the borders with refugee illegal immigrants. It's kind of the same thing. You're taking advantage of a system and making yourself rich on the side, and the job you're doing is basically to weaken and destroy a country or a city or a community. And in Austin, Texas, it's striking to see because it's a very liberal town. You're talking about the farmers markets being shut down. I mean, who doesn't like a good farmers market with some good prices and some good food and everything? But this is a town of hippies and farmers markets, and so it's actually good to see that it's affecting that and it's hurting that, because that will mean that there'll probably be some change. That'll mean that the hippie community, the liberal community here in Austin, will actually maybe start having a voice and saying enough's enough.
That's what I'm hoping for. And again, it's just been so crazy to me to sit here and watch Austin slowly degrade. It's been so sad to see. And again, that's why President Trump was elected into office, because so many people in Texas and California have actively seen what Democratic policies look like. So, I mean, that's why it's so important to his supporters that he has been in office. But speaking of President Trump as well, the Washington Post put out a story about him over the weekend, and it's about his rhetoric and the way it's changed the way children are harassed in American classrooms. Owen was talking about this, and they put this out, of course, in honor of President's Day, just how President Trump's a big bully. Well, I want to go to this clip of what the average day for a Trump supporter looks like. This was a Trump supporter in Nashville who was celebrating his 50th birthday, and also he actually wasn't even wearing a Make America Great Again hat. His wife got him a Make 50 Great Again hat, and here's what happened.
Danny Sprague is a Staten Island, New Yorker. He's a decorated veteran, retired from the NYPD. Goes to celebrate his 50th birthday, right, with your wife, Danny, with his wife, down to Tennessee. And they're having a fine time. And he happens to be wearing this hat. And it says, Make 50 Great Again. I'm assuming the blood and the injury didn't come with the hat.
I went down to Nashville and I was celebrating my 50th with my wife. She had a bunch of my friends and family all come and meet us and surprise us. And she had that, the hat given to me as, a nice play on words. I am a Trump supporter, and she just, thought I would love the hat. I put on the hat and walked around town, and it was a great day. A lot of reactions, and most of them positive. When we were in the bar then that night, we're all hanging out. I'm spun around, and this female punches me in the face and grabs my hat and starts yelling, "How dare you?" We were hanging out by where the security was, and they were right on top of it, separated it fast, but they didn't see the initials, so they took me out one way, and they took her out the other way. When they noticed I was bleeding, they asked me what happened, and when I told them and I wanted to press charges, she was already gone. She definitely either had a large ring or she could have maybe had keys in her hand. When she spun me around, she caught me. I immediately went down, grabbed the arm, and then I was grabbing my hat back. I didn't get a good look at her. I was hit a second time, and I can't tell who hit me. My wife did get an ID on her.
So we're looking for mid-30s
All right, Greg,
to
so
45.
there's the average day for a Trump supporter. He wasn't even wearing the Make America Great Again hat, though. He was wearing a Make 50 Great Again hat, and he was met with a punch to the face on his birthday by some unhinged liberal who can't handle a red hat. Your thoughts?
Sometimes I think we're living in the Matrix. This is like one of those moments when I think about it, like the fact that the hat's red. Red is a very striking color. It makes me think of bulls, the matador with the red cape used to taunt and attract the aggressive bull. It's like they chose a very striking color for the hat. It became this thing, a symbol of hate, according to the the brainwashed minions of the television set. And so they've been programmed like mad bulls to when they're in public and they see someone wearing a red hat. Doesn't matter what the hat is. If that hat's red, it seems to trigger this bullish, animal, aggressive madness that's been cultivated and nurtured by the television set. And
well, and you know, Greg, I was telling the guys in break.
it's exquisite.
Yeah, I like going to EDM festivals a lot and just music festivals, and people will wear red hats that say "Make America Rage Again," like, you know, like "Make America Party Again." But apparently you can't, you probably would get punched in the face for wearing one of those now. So we've gotten to a point of lunacy where, you know, I have a red Nike hat, and sometimes I wonder if people look at it and they like do a double take because they see the red hat and they automatically get triggered by it. And it's just so crazy to me because that's the state we're at now. We even have mainstream media articles that have come out and that said you shouldn't wear red hats because they trigger anxiety.
Yeah, we have stopped trying to be, you know, self-reliant, self-responsible. We've stopped trying to be strong. And we've just embraced, or at least, I don't want to say we, I would say the corporate narrative that's being pumped out on every level of entertainment through Hollywood, music, and the news is trying to train everyone to be weak victims that can't handle anything. And that's not how I grew up. I mean, I may be an old man, but I guess I am already at that point in my life where I can sound like an old man and talk about in my days, they used to say sticks and stones can break your bones, but words will never hurt you.
Well, Greg, yeah, we're a long way away from that. Folks, we'll be talking about Bernie Sanders and Mike Bloomberg, who also had choice words for each other on the other side of this short break. Stay tuned. Go to InfoWarsStore.com, though, while you wait for us. All right, Greg, my last segment in studio with you. It's been a fun 2 hours. We've covered so much stuff so far. But I now want to get into Mike Bloomberg versus Bernie Sanders. Of course, a lot of people thought that Bernie versus Buttigieg was who to watch for, but now it's coming out that it's Bernie versus Bloomberg. And Bloomberg put out a video today basically trashing Bernie's supporters and Bernie's campaign. So let's go to that now. So for our radio listeners, this is a video compilation that Bloomberg put together of all of the memes and all of the tweets of Bernie bros harassing people, saying that Warren is a snake, that Joe Biden sucks, that Pete Buttigieg is bad, F off Yang Gang. And then it says, are you being harassed by a Bernie bro or a Bernie bot? Bernie bros are angry.
It is vitally important for those of us who hold different views to be able to engage in a civil discourse.
And then it ends with the word really, ? Really. And then it ends with text Mike to blah, blah, blah. So that was Bloomberg's latest response to Bernie Sanders, who said that Bloomberg wouldn't have the energy to, I guess, make Americans as excited as he would. And I'm just really interested in seeing all of this play out and what's going to happen now with Bernie versus Bloomberg and whether or not, well, I mean, I think we know that they're not going to choose Bernie. They're going to choose Bloomberg to run against Trump. We'll see about that. But speaking of Bernie as well, he was rallying in Nevada because, again, the Democratic debate on Wednesday and then Democratic primary in Nevada this Wednesday and Sunday. And this is what happened at Bernie's rally as well. And that is clip 15.
Bernie, I'm your biggest supporter, and I'm here to ask you to stop propping up the dairy industry and to stop propping up the animal.
So Bernie was having a rally in Vegas, and this woman comes up, grabs his mic, and starts talking about how she's Bernie's biggest supporter, but she really needs him to stop propping up the dairy industry. Then this woman comes topless and starts pouring milk-colored red all over herself, and Bernie just stands there and looks on. So that's a little bit of how the Bernie Sanders campaign is doing and how Bernie is being welcomed into Nevada. Greg, what do you think of that?
Well, I think that's a Soros-funded protest for sure. The topless woman reminds me of PETA or the Russian, I can't remember the name of the Russian protest group. Same kind of thing, it seems like to me. They're trying to, on the surface, it seems to me like what they're doing is they're trying to stop Bernie, push Bernie out of the way so that Hillary and Bloomberg or whoever can run. That's on the surface, and that might be plan A. But I suspect that another plan, and maybe even their main plan, is to try to throw a match on this Bernie Bros bonfire just waiting to be sparked, because that ad I saw by Bloomberg, what that looked like to me was an ad for all the angry young boys in the country to show them where they can go join up with like-minded people and start a party. That's what it looked like to me. And the fact that they're openly trying to shut Bernie down also is a way of instigating this unrest. And if they really, if they're so desperate, which they appear to be willing to do anything. If they want to start a war, the best way to do it is to just agitate this Bernie crowd, build this Bernie crowd as big as they can get it, keep agitating it, and then yank all their hope away from them at the DNC and just let it burn.
Well, and see, like I said, too, I thought Bernie was definitely our most popular candidate. I really didn't believe too much in Mike Bloomberg, but now it's coming forward that he is really popular. He's spending millions of dollars. I think I saw a tweet, and it said that if Mike Bloomberg spent $1 million a day from today until the presidential elections, he'd still have a net worth of $50 billion. So Mike Bloomberg obviously has money to burn. He's now paying influencers to say his name, to say he's cool, to put out memes about him. But of course, with all of this rising popularity has come a lot of videos about Mike Bloomberg and some of his past comments. So, Greg, I want to talk now about Bloomberg's various ideas on different social issues. So I'm going to play you a couple clips here, and at the end of them, I'll get your response to them. But first, let's go to what Mike Bloomberg thinks about healthcare.
What things they can fix right away. You know, if you're bleeding, they'll stop the bleeding. If you need an X-ray, you're going to have to wait. That's just... And all of these costs keep going up. Nobody wants to pay any more money. And at the rate we're going, healthcare is going to bankrupt us. So not only do we have a problem, it's going to bankrupt us. And we've got to sit here and say which things we're going to do and which things we're not. Nobody wants to do that. You know, if you show up with prostate cancer and you're 95 years old, we should say, go and enjoy, have an ice cream, lead a long life. There's no cure. And you can't do anything. If you're a young person, we should do something about it. Society's not willing to do that yet. So we're going to bankrupt us, and we're not looking at...
All right, so there's Bloomberg's idea on healthcare. If you're old and you have cancer, sorry. If you're young, maybe we'll help you. Let's see what he has to say about farmers and blue-collar workers now.
And we could teach processes. I could teach anybody, even people in this room, so no offense intended, to be a farmer. It's a process. You dig a hole, you put a seed in, you put dirt on top, add water, up comes the corn. Then we had 300, you could learn that. Then you have 300 years of the Industrial Society. You put the piece of metal on the lathe, you turn the crank in the direction of the arrow, and you can have a job. And we created a lot of jobs. 98% of the world worked in agriculture. Today, it's 2% in the United States. Now comes the information economy. And the information
All right, so that's a little bit of what Mike Bloomberg thinks of the farming communities and blue-collar workers. Now let's jump to a clip about what he thinks about the Hispanic and African-American communities.
Cohort of Black and Latino males aged, let's say, 16 to 25 that don't have jobs, don't have any prospects, don't know how to find jobs, don't know what their skill sets are, don't know how to behave in the workplace where they have to work collaboratively.
All right, so there's his comments on that. And then finally, let's see how Mike Bloomberg is going to act around young 11-year-old girls.
Francie is 11 years old. You don't drink beer yet, do you? No. Good. Okay, well, thank you for coming and thank you for having us.
All right, so our radio listeners, he plants a kiss on her cheek. She looks visibly uncomfortable, and we're definitely getting creepy Joe Biden vibes from Mike Bloomberg. So there's a little example of what he thinks about healthcare, blue-collar workers, the Latino and African-American community, and how he's going to act around young kids. Greg, what do you think?
Well, I don't know much about Mike Bloomberg. The socialized, the whole thing about prostate cancer being 95 years old, I can't argue with him on there. I'm not a big fan of socialized medicine. If I was 95 and a doctor told me I had prostate cancer, I think I'd just be ready to have a party and let it go. If you're rich and you can afford it, then go at it. Live forever if you can, like all these rich guys want to do. The farmer thing I thought was very offensive. Half my family come from a farmer family in Ireland, so there's a little bit of personal thing there. But in my experience, everything is easy once you learn how to do it. Once you figure out how to master something, you put the time in and you figure out how to do something, then it's kind of easy. Everything is difficult if you don't know how to do it. So his analogy is just unnecessarily offensive to people because it's all relative. Every skill, it must be learned. Every skill must be learned well. And then at that point, you have accomplished the same thing as the guy next to you, no matter what the skill is. Some of the people say racial comments to me. A lot of it just sounds like crime statistics. I don't think it was the clip that you played, but some of the clips I heard sound like just reasonable conservative crime statistics.
I think the only reason why I didn't really appreciate that one is because he's generalizing. I do think that there are statistics to back up a lot of the things that he has said, but I do think that some of his racial comments are generalizing to a big part of the community and kind of putting them all under a blanket, which is why I didn't agree with it too much.
I understand that. Yeah, I can see that. And we do live in a different time. I like crass people. I like people that speak freely. And that's one of the things that Bloomberg has. I don't know much. Like I said, I don't know. I just started watching him when he came out and announced his run. There's only one reason why I don't like Bloomberg, and that's because he is Hillary's little sock puppet, it appears to be. And we knew this was coming. We knew she was coming out of the woodwork somehow. I was wrong. I thought it was going to, I mean, I don't want to say that I'm wrong about almost everything, but I thought she was going to come out with Buttigieg. I thought Buttigieg was her little sock puppet. I was sure of it, and I was wrong about that.
So Barstool News Network actually just put out this tweet, right? It's Hillary Clinton's old happy birthday to this future president tweet, shows young Hillary Clinton. And they said, insane that this hasn't been deleted yet. Well, it's coming out now that the Mike Bloomberg campaign is adding Capricia Marshall, a top Clinton ally. And of course, it's been floated that Hillary Clinton's going to be his potential VP. So I'm glad that you did bring that up as well.
Yeah, to me, it seems like she's going to do it. The only way to really pull off something that crazy is to pull it at the last minute and just get everyone in shock. Because otherwise, it's just too insane to be considered reality.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Greg. I had a lot of fun. Hopefully, you can cover coronavirus in the next segment.
Welcome back. You are listening, watching to The War Room. I am your host today, Greg Reese, sitting in for Owen Schroyer. Happy President's Day. So the wonderful Savannah Hernandez was in here going over all these stories from today. We talked to Caitlin Bennett, who was attacked in a massive crowd of crazy college kids. Just like we saw the gentleman with the red hat attacked just because it looked like a MAGA hat. Crazy people are everywhere, being triggered by the television, being triggered by the pop culture mainstream narrative. You see a red hat, you go crazy. Get triggered, go nuts. The rest of this hour, we're going to be taking phone calls. So if you're ready to call into the show, please feel free to call us. I'm going to ask for a phone number to go up so that I can give out the number. There it is, 877-789-2539. And we're going to open the conversation up to really anything you want to talk about, anything we've talked about in the past couple hours. What I'm looking at now is coronavirus. I mean, to me, this just seems to be the big story. So that's what I'm really interested in talking about, but I'll be talking about anything you want. We're also going to be joined by our great cameraman, Drew, for the rest of this hour. He'll be with us in the next segment, and I believe he has some articles prepared as well that we're going to go over and talk about. This is, to me, the dominating story is the coronavirus. You know, I've been interested in pursuing truth and conspiracies for over 15 years right now. I've been listening to Jones and several other people for over 15 years. And for me, it always came to this. It always came to this moment, to the moment where they're going to start opening up the plagues, the big stuff. We were talking about it earlier with Leo Zagami and the Pope and the Vatican. I mean, this is like the top tier of the pyramid. You know, we see the Pope and the Queen showing weakness. And the coronavirus, which, I mean, as bad as it is, it also seems to be like weakness. It doesn't seem like it doesn't seem to be the way they wanted it to go. It was another desperate move, I think. I just recovered from getting sick. I'm still a little sick, and it's a strange, I know a lot of people that also, Owen was out sick for a while. It's a strange time to be sick. when all the news you're getting every day, all the news I'm getting every day on the coronavirus, every morning I wake up with my coffee and I get the latest on it, and every morning it's worse. Every morning the information is stacking up as if we are looking at a real nightmare pandemic. And it's interesting because it doesn't feel like it right now. Right now it seems like everything's normal. Everything's the way it usually is here in Austin, Texas, at least. But clearly not in China. The images and the videos we're getting out of China clearly show that life is not the way it usually is there. They're dealing with what appears to be absolutely extraordinarily dystopian events. And now we're looking like we're going to start seeing how the rest of the world is affected. But it's extraordinary on many levels. The other thing that's interesting is I was watching a Fox News clip, and I don't know the name of the woman. I don't really follow Fox too much, but she was like a Fox middle-aged, someone I would picture on The View. Sorry for my ignorance. And she was insinuating that China went to Davos to infect Davos, knowing that they were infected then. She was insinuating that China were sending infected diplomats to perhaps the White House and to Davos to spread this plague. I think she even referred to it as plague warfare. This is Fox News talking Alex Jones, David Icke level stuff. So we're in it. We are in the times now. I mean, anything goes. Anything's possible. Thanks for tuning in. If you want to call into the show, please call in 877-789-2539. We'll see you after this break. Welcome back. You are tuned in to the War Room. I am your guest host, Greg Reese, covering for Mr. Owen Schroyer. We are joined today by our great cameraman, Drew.
Hey.
For the rest of the hour. And we're going to take some callers eventually. But first, for now, welcome to the show. And I see you have some articles to discuss.
I do have some articles to discuss. And it's funny you should bring up groundhogs, man, because Groundhog Day just passed recently, right? And what really troubles me about groundhogs is, can I get a document cam shot, please? Document cam shot. It's fine. I'll pull it up on my phone. No, I'm kidding. There we go. All right. So if you look at groundhogs, right, it's kind of deceiving that they're called groundhogs. And it's just really bothered me because the point that you brought up to me earlier and that I was curious about for a long time was the plural of moose. And you found out earlier this morning that the plural to moose is actually moose.
That's right.
You taking that down for notes?
Well, I'm just making a note that, a group of crows, a plural of crows, is a murder of crows. I believe ravens is an unkindness of ravens, and moose, it's just moose.
Just moose. They like to keep it simple.
One moose is the same as a million moose.
A million moose. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? But the thing about groundhogs is they look nothing like hogs. They're closer to rats, I would think. But I was thinking on the ride over here that they actually kind of look like beavers.
Let me see one of those, please.
Here, check out one.
You're an interesting guy, Drew.
I try.
I mean, if you were to hand this to me and tell me that these are beavers, I probably would.
You would think they were
just
beavers,
assume
right?
that you were telling me the truth.
That's because I'm also not showing you any of the tails. But these things don't have tails like beavers. But if you look up groundhogs, they're actually referred to as land beavers as well, which I think is a more accurate name. But to get to the articles you were discussing. So the only article that really stuck out to me today was there was an adult film shot at a Santa Monica public library during business hours. Now, the word I want to point out on that headline is public.
Right.
So, I mean, why shouldn't they be able to do that? I haven't seen the video, so I don't know what exactly they did.
So wait, say this headline again. Read this headline.
Adult film shot at Santa Monica Public Library during business hours sparks outrage.
It's an adult film. And what were they filming? Were they I mean, obviously they couldn't have been filming anything pornographic. It must have been some type of.
Well, so it was posted to a porn site. There's absolutely no telling what was on the video because I haven't seen it yet. I will be sure to go and find this just because I'm talking about it. But I mean, from what they showed on the news, it was just the girl walking in. Oh, there we go. We brought up the article right here. Porn shot XXX. But who knows, man? If you show a little bit of skin, you could be in a bikini, and that could be classified as porn.
Well, I imagine it must have been, I mean, I haven't looked at this article yet, but I imagine it must have been a legitimate, like a pornographic production company that secured.
Why do you assume
a
that?
permit at the library? Well, where else are they getting their information from? Do we have a adult film shot at Santa Monica Public Library during business hours sparks outrage? Well, I mean, I could see why that would spark outrage. It does set a precedent. I don't think libraries are a good place for any movies to be produced at. I mean, libraries are
quiet in there.
Quiet in there, exactly. I mean, how would you feel if you were a tax-paying member of that community and you were going to your library to get some work done, and there were these yahoos trying to shoot a video or a movie? You know,
Yahoos, man. The yahoos will get you every
yeah, absolutely,
time.
Absolutely.
You know, that was the first time I had to stop myself from cussing, so I'm hoping I don't cuss this entire time.
I hope so too. I hope so too. We don't want to do that. It's not good.
So, Greg, what'd you bring me on for today? Actually, I appreciate you bringing me on today, man. I had you on episode 3 of 21 the Podcast. Everybody go check that out. That's www.21thepodcast.com. Thank y'all for bringing that up. Make sure you scroll down just a little bit. Scroll down just a little bit more. And where it says click here to subscribe, y'all click that. And as you can see, we also had the great Alex Jones on there. And I think it as at the beginning of next month, we'll have a guest on that I think will appease a lot of people that are now watching the War Room. But yeah, please make sure y'all go over there and subscribe. Basically, Jones.
You know, the Alex Jones episode of this 21 the Podcast is really fantastic. If you are an Alex Jones fan, I recommend you check it out. You get to see a lighter side of Alex Jones than you usually see, and you get some questions that you haven't heard before. There's some great moments in there, actually. I'm a big fan. I am a fan of Alex Jones as a journalist and as a character, and you get to see an interesting character on that episode of 21 the Podcast.
I agree. I think my entire intentions of bringing him on was to give an idea of Jones that people don't necessarily get to see a lot. So it's more playful. It's more him, screwing around, just chilling rather than, the stress of all the news that he has to deal with all day, I could assume takes a toll on him. So I felt like it was a good idea to pull him back from that and just, have a good time and play some cards.
Yeah, it was fun. And I enjoyed watching it. One of the reasons I had you on was just to get a different perspective. I tend to think that you could cut the InfoWars audience in half into two groups today, and that before Trump, there was simply one group in the InfoWars audience. This is my take. And what this is the group of people that are interested in the truth. They're fascinated by conspiracies and lies, and they want to get to the bottom of things. They want to see what's going on in the world. It's a very interesting pursuit. When Trump got elected, this group was kind of cut in half. One half of the group saw call it a patriot movement behind Trump that we have decided to put our faith and our spirit in and back and support and hope that we're gonna get somewhere good. And then the other half, I think, is to be put best, maybe just haven't gone that step, haven't put their faith into this, still think they're seeing the same old, another lie. Still a little skeptical, and I would say, in my opinion, that Drew represents the group of the continuing to be skeptical, and I am in the group of those who have chosen to put a hat into this one thing called Trump. That's my take. What do you say on that, Drew?
Well, first off, I want to start by saying I'm in no means a Trump supporter, and we're going to open up the phone lines with that. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm in no way a Trump supporter. And when you say that InfoWars audience breaks down into two groups, I would disagree a small bit, only because I actually knew about and didn't even really know that it was Jones at the time, but I learned about InfoWars watching conspiracy videos on YouTube, mostly all about 9/11. Loose change is what wound up being Jones's thing. But I guess if I had to put myself into a genre of people that are interested in InfoWars, it would only be for the conspiracy style stuff that's put out. Like, I like a lot of your work. Like, you connect things that you know, people don't necessarily wouldn't put together if they're just watching, you know, CNN or any mainstream news thing. You know, you deep dive into some of these things that some people may call crazy or call conspiracy, but they're really interesting videos, and they're pointing out things that, you know, a lot of people wouldn't even think to look for.
Well, I mean, to me, that's the most interesting stuff there is. I mean, we've had this conversation before where basically some people get emotionally upset about the idea that the world is conspiring against them. And I guess I can understand
I thought
that.
you were going to say that the world is flat.
No, we're not going there. And I guess I can understand where they're coming from. But for me, that's not like that. For me, it was basically before I kind of started seeing things, what I first started experiencing was a boredom and this sort of bored feeling every day that there's nothing interesting going on and that the whole world is just what they're telling us it is on pop culture and stupid, boring television and stuff like that. And so once I started seeing that, no, we're being lied to and that things are not at all as what they appear, all of a sudden life started becoming more exciting and more interesting and more animated. And it made me want to learn more and just sort of dig into everything and question everything and ask questions of everything, which is what we're here doing today. So if you want to call in, we got a bunch of people lined up. After this segment, we're going to start taking callers. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you then.
That's all we need.
Music compliments of our great cameraman, Drew, joining us today on The War Room. I am Gregory, sitting in for Mr. Owen Schroyer, who is back to good health. He was just covering for Mr. Alex Jones today on the Alex Jones Show. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get into these callers. Caller Jefferson from Virginia thinks that Michelle will be the one to come in at the end. Jefferson, how you doing? So what's your theory? Your theory here is on Michelle Obama?
Hey, Drew.
Hey, how you going?
There? Yeah, I think Bloomberg and Hillary it's going to be a trial balloon. I don't think it's going to poll very well. They're going to get to a brokered convention, and Michelle's going to have to sweep in at the last second and make herself drafted into the position of the nominee. And this is where it really gets weird. She can run with Barack Obama as her vice president because the 22nd Amendment doesn't say he can't be elected to be a vice president. It says he can't be elected twice to presidency.
Wait, so you're saying that Michelle Obama is going to step in and run as the Democratic candidate?
With Barack as her vice president, yes.
That arrangement's a new one. I have not. I pictured like a Hillary Michelle arrangement at that last minute. It does make sense to me that this kind of wild card is only going to work when you're working with like shock and awe, like freaking everybody out with this kind of weirdness. And but I didn't think of Michelle with Barack as the VP. That might be a very tempting ticket for the crazies.
I'll piss a lot of people off and say I'd vote that way.
I'm not surprised. Sometimes he's all talk. Sometimes he does this, I think. Just
to be honest, I wouldn't wake up early and go vote regardless. But if that was the case, I would definitely vote Obama.
Our friend Drew, I think, is in for a big awakening. Hopefully, if we get justice someday and Obama goes to the gallows, then our friend here will.
I don't think anybody's going to get arrested, Greg.
Well,
so you put out the Clinton body count, and I think that's the closest thing to anybody realizing why nobody's going to get arrested, because there's so many ties to Bill and Hillary and that man, and it's almost like they can't deny that. They can't deny any of that stuff.
I'm holding firm to hope. I mean, I already made my peace with this. In fact, during the Obama administration, I thought it was hopeless and there's nothing that's ever going to change any of this stuff. I lived in an ashram, as Drew knows. I lived in an ashram, and I made peace with the universe. I made peace with the fact that evil seems to rule over the earth. And then the Patriot Movement Trump administration, in my purview, came into power, and we have a bit of a wild card now. We have a challenger in the ring. At least that's the way that I see it.
Speaking of wild cards, though, I want to encourage everybody to go to 21thepodcast.com. Make sure you hit subscribe. Greg's taking tally over here of how many times I say. Make sure you check out Greg Reese's episode. Make sure you check out Alex Jones' episode. Make sure you check out everybody's episode on there. I'm trying to get my watch hours up, man. I'm trying to monetize my YouTube, and so again, I'm very appreciative of you bringing me on today to get the opportunity to spread the word.
Oh, absolutely. We know how important it is for you to get on here and plug your podcast. It's absolutely important, and we need to help you out that way. We're going to go to the next caller, not the next caller on the list here, but we're kind of picking subjects that that seem to be interesting at the moment. And I see one, life coincidences, at Joe in Florida. Can we talk to Joe in Florida?
Yeah, you there?
Yeah, Joe, what are you talking about, life coincidences?
Well, just if you go to Google Translator and you translate COVID, COVID, into Hebrew, and then you cut and paste the Hebrew translation back from Hebrew to English. I don't know if you have somebody that can do that on screen.
We got him. We got him right on it right there. Okay, go ahead. COVID into Hebrew.
Yeah, and then copy it, paste it back into Hebrew to English.
Hebrew into English.
We're taking directives from callers from Joe from Florida.
That's right.
Kobe. Well, now that's kind of,
isn't that wild?
That is kind of wild. And it started off as COVID into Hebrew. Hebrew into there is COVID. And that's, that is, I'll tell you now, that's kind of why I picked on your question, because this is one of those, and I think there are many coincidences that in some, it's like the black cat glitch in the Matrix. It has no meaning. It's arbitrary. It's like a dream. It doesn't mean anything. But what it does mean, I think, is that we are in some type of illusion. What we consider this solid reality is much bigger of a mystery in a magical realm.
Another thing that's crazy, is there an I'm feeling lucky button still on Google? Is that still there? Because if you type in like 5 5s and then click I'm feeling lucky, don't do this on screen. Do this in your own private time, but it'll show you something that you'll never forget.
I'm scared.
My God, it does. Don't do it on camera. Please don't do it on camera. We'll have all the audience.
I'm scared, but let's just be clear. You're talking about 5 number 5s.
5 number 5.
So 5 5 5
I believe
5
that's
5.
It's been a long time since I've done it. But
you punch it in Google. I hope we're not giving like felonious information right now.
No, it may be felonious only because I don't know the meaning of felonious. So
okay.
It may be that, but it just used to show some really gruesome stuff.
Well, be warned.
Oh, man,
be careful.
It was bad. Do you know what a meatus is?
Meatus?
A meatus. A meatus is actually it's similar to the vagina, but in the male sense of it. So it's like the hole.
You're talking about the not the meatus.
The meatus. It's called a meatus.
All right. Well, there you go. Meatus. I thought it was.
Oh, the urethra.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of.
That's the tube.
Okay. They are connected.
Yeah. They
sort
are
of like
connected.
the hand bone is connected to the arm bone.
Right. Yeah.
Gotcha.
The knee bone is connected to the shin bone, and the shin bone is connected to the ankle bone.
Gotcha.
The bone is connected to the foot bone.
Yeah.
And the foot bone is connected to the toe bone.
We're getting an absolute education here on
anatomy,
which is fantastic.
What else?
We have nothing wrong with that. Do you want to pick the next caller?
I can't see because my glasses are polarized. But let's go to Jake in Oregon on CRISPR thoughts.
Good one. CRISPR thoughts. Jake in Oregon, how you doing?
Hey, I'm well. Thank you so much for taking my call. I love hearing you.
You're welcome, Jake. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But yeah, so my whole issue, I love the stuff you guys talk about. You always talk about really relevant stuff, at least to me, stuff that people should really be focusing on. But I've rarely heard you guys really mention a whole lot about CRISPR and gene editing. And if you really look into it, Bill Gates and other millionaires, they've plugged in hundreds of millions of dollars into this. They say it'll cure disease. They say it'll cure AIDS and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, like they're talking about changing the very DNA of humans, and they're moving very quick with it. I'm just kind of interested in your thoughts.
I mean, yeah, I agree with you 100%. And this, in my opinion, is one of those coincidences that, or at least one type of coincidence, because maybe not, maybe I'm reaching right now, but me and our great cameraman Drew, one of the things we often have conversations about is AI and this the
end of the world.
End of the world stuff, right? Like, and that's what CRISPR genes is. CRISPR genes is basically, so yeah, on one level, all these crazy old billionaires want to stop dying. They want to stop aging.
But they talk about CRISPR genes, but I haven't once heard about Levi genes.
It's a different kind of jeans.
Brand. That's the top brand. Levi jeans.
And they're not bad, and we're not against them, but it is a different jeans. We're talking J's and G's here. But when we come back after this break, we're getting right back into the crisper jeans, into the end of the world stuff. Welcome back. You are listening or watching or doing both to the War Room.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I just saw that video earlier today. This guy is actually flying himself. Watch this. Watch this. Watch what he does.
We are watching a Rocket Man. Very impressive. Actually, the most impressive video of a Rocket Man I've ever seen. Where is this?
It's in Dubai. They're doing like an expo coming up. Imagine how fast those buildings are coming at his face.
I wouldn't want to go over land with that, and I think going over water, it's just it's a lie that it's any safer. But
imagine
make me
running
feel
into
safer.
a bird.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd even. I like watching him do it, but I don't think I'd like to.
No,
I don't think I'd like to go there. I don't even want to ski because I don't want to break a knee.
I'd like to snowboard, but I don't want to break a knee either.
Yeah, that might be fun, but I'd rather just enjoy cozy fire when we're talking about snow.
I do like fire.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So we've been taking callers, great with our great cameraman Drew here, and we're just talking about the crisper jeans, which I do think is super interesting. One of the things I never understood about that whole thing, one of my favorite writers, Robert Anton Wilson. I know a lot of our audience reads Robert Anton Wilson. He's a great writer. But one of the things that always disappointed me about him was he was into the transhuman movement. He was really big into this idea of ending aging and living forever. And I personally think part of the human condition involves and requires one to make peace with death and realize that we're going to die. It's one of the things that we can depend on. One of the things we can expect is death. And to not have peace with that causes people to go insane. And that's what this whole CRISPR gene is. I mean, what do they want to do? They want to just keep recreating their, I mean, it's madness to me.
Well, but one thing, talking about that and then like the fact of dying and everything like that, you've watched Black Mirror, right? Have you ever seen that episode, San Junipero, where they're like, they're basically like in their deathbeds and then they put this little thing on and they get to go like live in a community basically in their mind. Like it's basically they get to go live in a simulation.
Yeah.
Have you seen that episode?
I haven't seen that one yet.
Dude, that's crazy. You should watch that.
You know, I mean, a lot of some people believe that life is immortal and that we do that anyways in a natural, organic sense. When we die, we get to go live in a maybe. I mean, I guess that's kind of like a vague idea of heaven. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you do that? Like, say you were on your deathbed.
No.
You had so many other things to do.
No, because to be honest, there's a part of me that's excited about experiencing what death is. It's one of the biggest mysteries there are in life. Right. And if it's nothing, you won't know it's nothing. So there's not going to be any emotional suffering if it's nothing. But if it's something, God knows I want to know what it is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's like, I wouldn't want to miss that one. That seems to be one of the most exciting
It would kind of suck
shows.
if it was nothing, though.
Well, once again, like I said, if it's nothing, you wouldn't know. It would just be something you wouldn't even experience. So, and I highly, and there is no nothing. If you look at everything in reality, compare anything to nothing. Nothing just ends. Everything, all matter turns into something else. You know, nothing just stops.
Anything to nothing.
Yeah, nothing just disappears.
Like 1,000 oranges.
Or like try to find an example in real life of a nothingness or an end that doesn't exist. It's just a concept. It's a concept in our heads that doesn't really exist in reality. And that's just me trying to be logical.
Unless you're eating a bowl of spaghetti and then it's all gone. That's the end of the spaghetti.
Well,
until next time.
But that spaghetti is inside of your body, and so it's not really, you just don't see it.
It's really funny that we're talking about spaghetti right now because 21thepodcast.com is really great, and you should scroll down on there, click subscribe, and maybe one day me and Greg Reese will just go on there and eat a bowl of spaghetti, and I'll show him what the end really means. Because when there's no more spaghetti in your bowl, there's no more spaghetti, bro. The pot is empty.
I've been on the ketogenic diet, so spaghetti is out for me. We have smoke being triggered in the studio right now. We weren't expecting that.
No, I don't want the smoke in here. I'm a purist. I like for the camera angles to look great, but instead, can we actually smoke in here?
No, there is no smoking in the studio.
That's unfortunate.
But we do have a smoke machine going. Let's go back to the callers. I'm interested in Richard from Texas wants to talk about a glitch in the Matrix. Richard, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Richard, how are you?
I'm doing well.
That's great.
Drew seems to be taking a cue from Alex's marketing skills. I can just picture Drew doing a commercial. InfoWarsStore.com, 50% off. Super Male Vitality, 50% off. But anyways.
Speaking of InfoWars Store, you should go to 21thepodcast.com and during the break. But no, seriously though, something like this, like I've never seen a set like this before in my life. And from what I understand, InfoWarsStore.com does take care of everything here and all the crew. So I mean, it's an awesome thing that Jones is doing. But anyways, back to your point. Sorry.
All right. So in line with what you've been talking about, I'm a Christian, but there's twice in my life when I had an experience which I would call a glitch in the matrix. It's the only way I can describe it. One time I was a teenager, and I was sitting in my family room with my father, and we were watching TV, and on the news, a broadcast came on saying Billy Graham had died. And then like 4 years later or something, or whenever, I don't know how many years later, we were sitting in the living room again, and then a different broadcast came on, and it's when Billy Graham actually died. And I turned to my dad, because it was, for some reason, a really vivid memory. And I said, don't you remember when Billy Graham died before? And he said, yeah. And we both remembered it the same.
Have you ever heard of the Mandela effect?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this is what a lot of people describe as the Mandela effect, and there's lots of examples of this. I haven't heard the one that you're giving me yet.
Look at that, and that's the exact one that comes.
Oh, there you go, the Mandela effect. Yeah, so I haven't heard this one yet, but I have heard several that I find to be interesting. It's not something that people can dismiss. Some people say some people remember things wrong. Of course they do. But what's interesting is that everyone seems to remember the same thing wrong the same way. That's the interesting thing. And it is fascinating. It's the same thing with the alien abduction experience. You can't just dismiss it. Sure, it could be psychosis, but everyone having the same psychosis, or not everyone, but this many people having the same, it's extremely interesting.
I'm going to be upset when Morgan Freeman dies.
When Morgan Freeman, well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I think he's lived a good life. And so far he's healthy as a horse, it seems. Well, I wouldn't know.
That is very true. Greg, you don't like thinking about celebrities dying. Like, you show no remorse for celebrities.
Well, that's a little personal, but I tend to feel not a lot of pain for when anyone passes, and that's something I've had since I was a child. If I passed, you
wouldn't feel bad?
I would feel excited. To be honest, I would feel, if you left, I would feel bad for a significant other of yours if you left in an untimely way. But for you, no, your journey is just beginning. For you, for the person who dies, their pain, their earthly suffering is over, and they are now entering into a grand mystery, I would like to think, like we were just saying. So I feel...
Or there's nothing, and there's no more spaghetti in the pot.
Or just nothing, and there's no more spaghetti in the pot. But I do agree with this last caller about, okay, so what is, I mean, who knows what this Mandela effect is? A lot of people popularly think it's CERN. It's not something that you can just dismiss. A lot of people like to dismiss it, but, you know, it really comes, you know, if you look at the idea of a matrix, of the idea of us living in a matrix, this isn't a new idea that the Wachowski brothers thought up when they wrote the movie. This is something that goes back in, I mean, every tradition, even the Christian Bible, every tradition talks about the fact that what we think is reality is not what we think it is, and that we are in this, some type of an illusion.
It always seems, I mean, there's so many instances that feels like we're in some sort of simulation. Because, I mean, you know, you don't interact with all these people that you wind up walking by, and who knows, like, what their life is. I mean, and then a lot of people kind of just seem like really filler, like they have no,
like they're not real,
right? And it's like they're just kind of moving, and they don't really have like a life story. They never did anything cool, and it's like, not to say like those people suck or whatever, but they just.
Well, how much of it is a projection that we are seeing out of our own minds? That's what a lot of the ancients tell us, and it's like, so when you close your eyes at night, are these filler people still there doing things?
Are they going to sleep?
Are they going to sleep?
I don't think they are. I think they're all in a room together, just like bumping heads, just like walking back and forth. It's like The Sims.
I mean, it's easy for me to understand that I'm alive and that I'm experiencing all this, but I am not so certain, for example, that you are anything other than some character that I see in my dream.
See what
I'm talking about? I mean,
I thought that I'm gonna get lazy. Hey,
our great cameraman Drew, we are back. You are tuned into the War Room. I am your guest host, Greg Reese, covering for Owen Schroyer, with our great cameraman, Drew, sitting in with us for this final hour, going over subjects, talking to callers. And it's a little lighthearted here. We're having fun. It is pretty fun here.
More like land beavers, am I right?
That's true.
Damn groundhogs.
But I got to say, on a serious note, and it's no longer doom and gloom. I was just going to plug a little bit and say go to the InfoWars store and get whatever you don't have to prepare for the worst. Because, yes, we're in a lighthearted mood. I can speak for myself. I'm an older man, and I made my peace. Like I said, I made my peace with what could possibly come. And we are actually now seeing it all unfold. So for me, it is a time to be super exciting to be alive in this extraordinary time and being able to see it. But no joke, if you haven't prepared and for the worst, one of the things I'm very grateful for is that one of my jobs here in the InfoWars to plug the store is to plug products that are very beneficial to all of us. We live in a very fragile time where a lot of us take things for granted, and we think that the store at the corner of the street's always going to be open. And if that one's closed, the next one down is going to be open. And if that one's closed, the next one down is going to be open. But anyone who's put any time looking into this sees, for example, just the trucking industry that fills these stores, how sensitive the trucking industry would be to any type of catastrophe. And the coronavirus is that. We're living in a time where people are going to be starving to death on their porches waiting to be helped. You don't want to be that person. You want to be the person who's already prepared, who actually has extra food to maybe help some of these poor people that don't know how to take care of themselves. That's who we want to be. We want to be the ones that are prepared for ourselves and being able to take care of others. And you can find everything you need to do this at the InfoWarsStore.com. Storable foods, gravity-fed water filters, the best high-quality iodine that the world can source. We have it. And on top of that, we have all other kinds of health supplements, anything you might need to make life all the more easier in this transition. I think we're kidding ourselves if we think we're going to get to some type of golden age just through the tulips, without having to go through any type of rough transition. And that's the best case scenario. The best case scenario of a golden age, I think, is going to require quite a bit of sweat and suffering, more than we've seen so far. So enough of the doom and gloom. It's not really doom and gloom anymore, is it? We are there.
Lucky for me, my immune system replenishes twice the speed of a regular man.
And that's what it's about, folks. We want a strong immune system. One of the ways you get a strong immune system is by proper diet, proper exercise, and there's all kinds of great supplements that we offer in the InfoWars store that'll help increase your immune system. Because with a good, strong immune system, we don't have to worry about these viruses. That's one of the things I think is most sinister about the vaccine jabs that you give a small child, is their immune system is just starting to develop and grow into something. And when you jab them full of all these crazy toxins, you're pushing and challenging their immune system to the limit. And we don't really know what kind of effects that can have. I'm an all-natural type of guy.
That was a great plug, Greg.
Thanks, Drew.
You're welcome.
Our next caller we want to go to is Sergeant from California, and the topic is the Adam and Eve story. This jumped out at me. I don't know where he's going with this, but I've heard lots of spiritual, philosophical, and religious interpretations of the Adam and Eve story, and so I'm curious. Sergeant from California, what do you have to tell us about Adam and Eve?
Sergeant from California, what do you have to tell us about Adam and Eve?
Oh, right. Is there an echo? I don't know. Hey, guys, how's it going? Greg Reese, Semper Fi to you, Devil Dog. Much love to you, brother.
Semper Fi.
Hoorah. Just wanted to go over the Adam and Eve story. Basically, a CIA declassified and sanitized document. It was basically the history of cataclysms on planet Earth, discussing the topic of lost ancient human civilizations and cataclysms that occurred on Earth thousands of years ago, causing them to vanish from the Earth without explanation. I'm not sure if you're too well learned on the subject of Earth changes and cycles of cataclysms within the solar system at all, or maybe like solar micronova, electromagnetic field reversals, anything like that. Are you familiar with any of those?
Greg, before you go into it, because I know you're really well versed on this, I would just suggest watching the movie Mother. If you haven't seen the movie Mother, it actually kind of goes over all this stuff. All right, go, Greg.
So Drew's right. I think Drew could sense I was chomping at the bit there. I would say not only do I know something about this, I would say it all comes back to this. And I've been talking for a long time about a book called The Gods of Eden by William Bramley. And he's a historian, and he focuses on man being provoked into violence by a third party in this book. And what he lays out is basically almost every 100 years there seems to be a massive population decrease that seems to be done systematically, as if we're being farmed, as if we're some type of livestock. David Icke gets into this quite a bit. I will say this, and I'm surprised this is where you were going with this Adam and Eve story, because I was thinking it was something else. But in my experience, in my pursuit of trying to get to the bottom of things and going through rabbit holes, every subject I've managed to pick, there it is, that book right there. I'm actually reading it for the 4th time right now because it's very timely as to what's going on right now, in my opinion. And this is all about as if mankind is property or considered property of some other type of race that's been here as long as recorded history, basically. I recommend it. But every rabbit hole I've gone down seems to end in some type of cataclysm. It doesn't matter what subject I'm studying, I always get to the same type of pole shift, cataclysm. Me and Drew have talked about this. He always reminds me that this time it's supposed to end in fire. And so, yes, I think this is, when I was plugging just now about, what could possibly happen with coronavirus. And I was saying it's not doom and gloom. I don't think it's doom and gloom. I think we're there. It doesn't mean we're all going to die.
No, but the crazy thing is, though, too, there is a lot of like biblical signs coming out recently. Like there's that locust plague that was going across Africa. And now that I'm looking at Drudge Report over here, it's actually reached China now. That's kind of crazy. There was like some steps that they found in Jerusalem, man, there's just so many signs that like point to the revelations and ending in fire. And even Trump actually kind of, I mean, you may think that that's some sort of propaganda, but it actually leads into like a bunch of theories.
Well, one of my favorite theories is Edgar Cayce. I don't know if anyone's familiar. I'm sure plenty of our audience is familiar with Edgar Cayce. He's one of the more successful prophets of our time. He was a doctor, holistic doctor, who used to lay next to his patients. They would take a nap together, and then he would wake up and basically prescribe them to stop eating a certain food or start eating a certain food, and they would heal themselves, and he had a great success rate. Anyways.
I like naps.
Everyone likes a good nap. And Edgar Cayce also predicted many other strange things. Once he had so much success in healing people, they started asking him other questions. And one of the things he was asked was about Revelations, the book of Revelations. And he pointed out that it is basically describing the same thing that the Hindu sages and the yoga sages are describing when they're talking about a person becoming fully illuminated. And it's interesting because in Revelations, it is written about the 7 lamps becoming ignited, same as the 7 chakras that become ignited when a person becomes illuminated.
Dude, that's crazy. Oh, so when you bring up chakras, the one thing it makes me think of is going to 21thepodcast.com, making sure you scroll down there, click subscribe.
Now, we knew that was coming. That's number 4. And that's actually a little more controlled than we thought it was going to be. So it's not that bad so far. But it is true when you said that it is very interesting, because it is very interesting when you compare basically the idea of Edgar Cayce saying Revelations is this spiritual awakening compared to what all the Easterners in Eastern philosophy and religion are saying. It's almost the same thing. And so what that means is it's nothing horrible and to be afraid of. Yes, it could be completely transformative, and yes, it could change everything. But when one thing changes and transforms, it becomes something else. It's a birth. It's a revelation. Nothing to be afraid of, in my opinion.
Nothing to see here, folks. But you know what is kind of scary? Price is Right actually halts production after Drew Carey's ex-fiance's murder.
That was actually the final article that our great cameraman Drew came in with today to talk about.
3 articles.
3 articles. And this
Drew Carey, groundhogs, and porn in a library.
Something about the Drew Carey jumps out at me. And we were talking earlier about the more strange, sort of curious stories. On the surface, there's nothing necessarily super strange about the
You know what is strange?
Drew Carey, but I find it somewhat suspicious.
Dude, it sucks that we and we probably shouldn't talk about it on here, but the McAfee stuff. I wish we could have got into that, but.
Yeah, and I had the good fortune to actually ask Max Kaiser, who was in studio yesterday, what he thought of McAfee, just because they're both kind of crypto guys. And he immediately dismissed McAfee as just being someone who's, I should maybe say this, but what we already know is the guy's a bit of a lunatic. Thanks for joining in.
Bring up lunatics because you should go to 21thepodcast.com.
More importantly, go to the InfoWarsStore.com and take care of yourself, take care of your family, get storable foods, get gravity-fed water filters, and join us tomorrow.
InfoWars, the most banned network in the world.
Let's just pull back from this. Bill and Melinda Gates had a giant drill of 65 million people dying from a virus escaping in China 3 months ago. Then they fund and help develop a TV show for Netflix, a docu-series that cast Bill and Melinda Gates as the saviors of the earth, financing vaccines for a worldwide pandemic of flu they predict that will kill hundreds of millions, and of course other vaccines like coronavirus. So they even have TV shows on Netflix coinciding with all of this unfolding, and they try to hide the fact that they're deeply involved in the production of the show. But at the end of the show, you learn that they've been there all along and had chosen to pick this maverick scientist to develop this wondrous one-size-fits-all flu vaccine that everyone needs to take, and that bad people that won't take the vaccines, they're the problems. So we're all going to be taught the incredible fear of the coronavirus and cities locked down and checkpoints and all of this incredible information. And then we're taught that the saviors are the United Nations and Bill and Melinda Gates. We have had sources through the big food industry and through several major food suppliers that institutional groups, governmental groups, corporate groups are buying up all the food, and that the food prices, raw food prices, are skyrocketing. Well, that indeed is now happening, and you're now seeing that in the news today. And storable food is selling out everywhere. Most of the big storable food suppliers are already sold out because they sold out to big institutional groups. My Patriot, that puts out InfoWars Select, that's their entire line of food, just an InfoWars sticker on it, still has food. They're still able to guarantee delivery within 7 to 9 days. Other people will tell you they can do that. I can tell you most of them won't, but that could change at any time. That means if you get your order in now, you will get it within 7 to 9 days. And they've got it fresh. They're packaging it right now as fast as it can go off the line. But if you wait, then it might be 10, 15, 20 days. We don't know, because already a lot of storable foods are being bought off the shelves here. The gas mask and the antiviral mask are selling out, and people are preparing. People are concerned. People know what's going on. Also, I personally have been taking vitamin D3 with vitamin K, or winter sun, because that's the main reason the body breaks down to viruses, is a deficiency in vitamin D3 or vitamin K. And yes, I was already promoting this a month ago because it's the wintertime. Before this even happened, we are selling out of our vitamin D3 that's organic and high quality winter sun. I'm going to keep it at the discounted price, I guess, until it sells out, because that's the right thing to do. But it's pretty scary that that's happening. And again, you go to InfoWarsStore.com, get the highest quality storable food, fresh, last 25 years, in good, high quality plastic sealed containers, with the then containers inside of that as well. Great for transport. This is all just a reminder, with the economic crises and with the election looming and the globalists trying to cause a civil war and race war, that now it's more important than ever to have a get out of Dodge plan and to have storable foods and water filtration. And InfoWars has been right on the front lines of getting people prepared. So whether it's the Alexa Pure water filtration system, that's still discounted despite the fact they're selling very fast. Those are probably going to sell out in a few weeks at projections. The food, again, at My Patriot, that private labels ours, they're selling out very, very quickly. We have the lowest prices you're going to find from My Patriot or any other distributors at InfoWarsStore.com. In fact, we were way lower than all of them, but they called yesterday and said, look, our prices have gone way up. You're going to have to raise it up to at least this point. But InfoWarsStore.com has the lowest price you're going to find on the high quality food from MyPatriotSupply.com. And the order just goes to them every hour, and then they ship it out right there. And then that also funds the InfoWar, which is a 360 win. But the big deal is that, according to the UN's own definition, the coronavirus is now a global pandemic, and obviously it's synthetic.